Thank you for choosing Minority Alliance organization meeting today. Today we're speaking on the conclusion of not only the Ahmaud Arbery case, but also the conclusion of the Kyle Rittenhouse case. When speaking on the Kyle Rittenhouse, I know me and you kind of spoke last week, Mark, about the outcome of that case and what that means kind of going forward. How do you feel that that kind of changes the landscape on the fight for equality, and how does that affect the minority community in the outcome of that case?
Well, I mean, there's basically two ways of looking at it. There's a technical way of looking at it, and then there's an anecdotal way of looking at it. Now, speaking anecdotally, I mean, it's the status quo and business usual from a minority standpoint. That's why I don't think there was a lot of general outrage from the minority community at the end of that case. And, once that verdict came out, because, there was kind of a microcosm of the American justice system at play there. I mean, you had all the different little things, you had all the technicalities, you had the, implicit biases that we, have become so accustomed to seeing over the years and the decades. And at the same time, you saw, the way that it was portrayed, the way some things played out, and that there being reasonable, wiggle room for, reasonable doubt and, in certain things, and it playing out that way. And in some ways, it could definitely be seen that the system worked on a technical, on technical guidelines. While at the same time, we can lament and see some of the behaviors of people like the judge in this case and really be able to look back and go, yeah, that's the system we know all too well. So, it kind of, whatever idea I had about the American justice system, the Kyle Rittenhouse case did nothing to dissuade you from whatever it is that you believe. Because in a way, whatever it is that you believe about the justice system was kind of true there.
And I mean, I kind of gave you my viewpoint last week, but how I feel overall, in a sense, is, we actually, for once, saw the system actually work, exactly the way the system is supposed to work. They went and found the actual evidence behind every piece of that situation. And the only thing for me with that and how it affects the minority community is we don't see that same type of justice play out for people within the minority community. As far as the evidence, finding the evidence behind their case. Half the time people in the minority community are convicted without really any evidence going against them at all. So, these are things that we can attack based on, the outcome of that case. These are things that we need to be asking for as far as justice reform and things that need to be changed within the judicial system as far as affecting minorities.
Well, yeah, I mean, that, kind of bolsters what I'm saying as far as like how it affects minority, the minority community and how we view, a case like this. There was definitely, from the standpoint of how this case was scoped, you can definitely see where the system worked out the way that it was supposed to. But at the same time, not only are we not afforded that same luxury, but, they tend to, when it's our case, when it's in a case, that they tend to either not allow that sort of, wide-ranging defense, number one, and number two, there's certain things that don't get asked. I mean, one of the things that was not asked of this case is, if you're not looking for trouble, why do you go there on a night like that and put yourself in a situation like that? Whereas for, many times that we've seen it, when it came to someone of color, when it came to someone, in a situation, anywhere near that, their background becomes the crux of, what brought them to this situation. We see this in police killings all the time, where we're going deep into a person's background. We're pulling out juvenile records that you're not even supposed to have, or we're pulling out juvenile records from when they were 14 and painting a picture that, they're the type of person that looks for trouble, and that could have something to do with them being in a situation where they even end up getting victimized. and it being a justification for them being victimized. We also see this in cases with women when they actually assaulted. There are questions like, well, how were you dressed? Well, how many drinks did you have? Where there's a spotlight on that particular person's background as opposed to the person who actually commits the actual act. So again, we see it from a prism of an implicit injustice in how it's going to be seen and played out. So whether it's in how the evidence worked out in this case for that particular defendant, or in the absence of digging deeply into his background, the way it's done on others, again, we see that sort of implicit bias play out time and time again. We see that sort of privilege play its way out again and again. So if you saw it that way and if you felt that way beforehand, this case did nothing to dissuade you from it.
Now, as far as kind of rolling on into the next case that concluded this past week with the Ahmaud Arbery and seeing the three men within that case convicted, do you think that that shows, a huge step within the right direction of where we're headed and actually seeing the system start to make these changes, even if it isn't small, ways and things of that nature?
It gives you a reason to be cautiously optimistic, and I hate to give an answer kind of that vague, but here's this thing. They came up with the absolute correct decision and they came with the absolute correct verdict. Would we have gotten that verdict had there not been a video? And the answer to that is very likely no, because even with that video's existence, it took 74 days for those men to even be arrested. And the system really allowed people to get away with things like that so many times over and over and over again. Well, it almost let them get away with it again. And I'm over the moon today. There actually was justice in this case, and that the right verdict played itself out. But at the same time, it's like I really want that. I would love for that to be a jumping off point of a changing of the wind, so to speak, and how we look at things like this, how we look at situations like this. I don't know if this case is enough to, really make me feel like that's going in the right direction. It was the right thing, but we have to kind of wait. We have to kind of take a wait and see approach with it, because I'm not sure we get this without the defense in this case having absolutely no case where you're actually going to plague the kind of thinking that they were hoping to get from a Southern jury and things like that. Well, we're not going to know yet. So, I think it's good. It's definitely a good thing. And for those who feel that sort of racial injustice, and for, anybody that's white and marched in 2020, and anybody that feels the way that they feel, and the people who are not in the minority community that were, hurt or confused by the Kyle Rittenhouse case, I think, can take some solace that there are parts of our system that does work. And I'm glad that it did. I just think that, this is kind of a cautiously optimistic place where we can go, okay, great, that worked there. Hopefully we can, move forward, and that can actually be the start of something, heading in the direction of actually equal justice under the law.
For me, with being from Georgia and that being a case, even at that in Georgia, one of the most unequal counties, I will say, that was a huge step in the right direction. Whether we continue to see things play out, continuously on a equal scale going forward is the big question mark. And as you said, for us to truly gain confidence that we're for sure headed in the right direction, we're going to need to see this not on just a one case basis, but a multiple case basis playing out, over a time period, to what we've dealt with so far. If anything, it should be kicked into high speed gear to make up for lost time on where a lot of people have, been incarcerated for the wrong things, and, for where people have not seen true justice play out for their family in the loss of a loved one. and that's across the minority community and all over the nation. So this is definitely something we want to continue, see progress made within these type of situations. But as far as that case there with Ahmaud Arbery, I think that his family, was one of the first families since we've, seen this new wave of the fight for equality to actually see full on justice on having their family member, um, justified in the end versus them just taking a check or anything like that and getting wrote off, which we've seen that too across the board, which is sad to say, but they stayed and they fought for, their son. And even though he wasn't here, they still fought in his honor and didn't, take a payday, for his death.
Yeah, I mean, 100% agree. I mean, because we have to look at this thing, and we've always kept it real, with this organization, and we look at things both in the micro sense and the macro sense. And in the micro sense, it is absolutely, wonderful to see, again, it's an 11 white, 1 black jury in the Deep South over a black man getting killed in a white neighborhood. So yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful thing to have happen. It's a step in the right direction. And we did, and yes, wrongful death or for something that someone did wrong, but these things also come with non-disclosure agreements. So you don't see that true justice. You don't see anyone have to admit guilt for the life that they took. You don't have to see anyone pay the price for the innocent person that they snuffed out, doing something you should not have done because primarily for the color of that person's skin. And that, it is a stumbling block towards that justice. So to see something like this, it is a good thing. And again, I spoke on the macro, the overall sense of it earlier, where it's like we want to see more of this. Like that we've proven that we have a system that can hold to account what needs to be held to account. Now, can we continue to do that and move forward and push forward actual equality? That I would like to see more of, and we'll have to see, but this time it definitely worked out.
Now, how do you think the effects of the judges on both of these cases have played a huge impact on how they played out or, the outcome on these cases?
Well, I mean, it simply comes down to, when you have a judge in all of these cases, that can have as much of an effect as anything else. And we do have a system, in this country where, we have a 3-branch government, and our judicial branch, which has kind of always been seen as the one that's above, the political fray. We're well past the time of being able to acknowledge the fact that that's just simply not true. For however people may feel about the Cal Rittenhouse case, and what cannot be debated is that that judge had an idea of what he felt of the people who were slain in that case. And he had this, there were certain comments that he made, there were certain things that he allowed, certain things he did not allow that line up specifically with the political affiliation that puts him in that position. And, we have 2 different ways that judges are put on the bench in this country, and I did a little bit of digging into that. And, we have judges that are elected, and then we have judges that are appointed, and I decided to dig a little bit deeper because, it never really occurred to me. I never really thought about it before. Why do we appoint judges? And those judges who are appointed for life. They will hold their job until they step down or die. And it turns out that it was one of those things where the best intentions lead to the worst outcome. The reason why some judges are appointed, and these are all federal judgeships. These are appeals courts, they're district courts, they are federal courts, and Supreme Court, of course. And those were allegedly done to kind of take away political pressure. So that, if you aren't doing something the way, if you make an independent idea, somebody can't get you voted off your bench. The problem is that we live in such a hyper-political climate right now. What's the political party that put you into that appointment? Who appointed you? And that tends to be the side that your ideology follows, 9 times out of 10. So you have that going on. You have the existence of liberal and conservative judges. You have judges who run as Democrats and run as Republicans. So the judicial branch is a political figure, as much as a political figure as the executive branch and as the legislative branch of all levels of government. So those things have huge effects on cases like this. You have a situation like in the Aubrey case, and I don't know the political affiliation of this particular judge, but I know he kept it, on the straight and narrow as far as what are the facts and evidence of this case. And we have the situation with the Rittenhouse case where the judge did that on occasion, but he also made his own feelings known on occasion. And this is kind of the crapshoot we deal with from the bottom all the way up to the top of the Supreme Court. And I think, we as a country need to recognize that we cannot ignore that branch of government and how they do their thing and how those things are being done. All of these things need to be redressed. The appointment of judges, that doesn't make them apolitical. That makes them hyper political in this particular climate. And that's something that we all got to look at. And, electing judges, just like electing prosecutors, DAs and, mayors and city councils and, governors, these things go a long way in how we're going to be seen and how these things are going to be adjudicated. So, it's now something that we have to continue to think about as far as how we're going to move forward and the type of change that we're looking for. We need to look there as well. And we've not traditionally had to do that.
I can definitely agree with you in the fact that that's one area that we have not truly put a scope on as a community quite yet. And that is one of the factors that, weighs in on a lot of the outcomes of the things we're fighting against. And to even be able to get a lot of these things moving in the right direction, you have to have these right people, judges in place to start seeing justice.
Yeah, absolutely. Just another point that I was thinking of here, it's like when we see, issues where we've seen racial issues with police officers, or we've seen racist or homophobic comments from members of the military, we have to remember that these people are chosen from among the population, and that's something that I've spoken on before. And whether it be a judge or whether it be a district attorney or a police officer or soldier or whoever, firefighter, whoever, they're among us. They live with us. They're our neighbors. We went to school with them. They're the same, schools our kids do and things like that. So not everybody in your community is an upstanding person who believes in the same things that we do and believes in equality and believes everybody should have, the same opportunities and things like that. And we have to use the power of our votes to hold those people to account, to fairness, if nothing else. Your gang is your gang, but we at least all need a fair shake. And if we're not getting that, we have to hold the power of our vote against them and not allow those kind of demons of thought to go into something so important as, a person putting on that black robe and holding lives in their hands.
You spoke a little bit earlier of certain judges from different political parties and things of that nature. It's truly no way to negate that. In the nation we live in, and the way people were raised, by the time you reach adulthood and have an opportunity at one of these positions, you've kind of been tailored either more towards one party or another, just an ideology, the way we base it, whether you identify as a party or not. But what we need to see is, as you said, when it comes to finding the facts and letting equal things play out within the system instead of withholding information that could help one party or hurt one party, and truly letting it be a fair system, across the board for people. So that's the one thing that, we feel is the main objective that we can attack currently.
Absolutely. I mean, as we move toward these things, you know, regardless of whether you come down on one side of the fence or the other, there has to be a general idea of what it is that you believe is a functioning society. If you are a Democratic leaning person, and yet a person that's up for a judgeship has a record of sending people to more years on a bag of drugs, and as opposed to a person who's committed sexual assault, you know, these are the sort of things that you want to think of. The type of person that has a super heavy conviction rate on minorities, where they have a much less, more lenient hand on on white offenders. These are the sort of things that you want to look at, and things like voting records. They're as important as voting records for congressional candidates, things like that. So these are the sort of things that, when we see them, we will highlight them. And, these are the things that, we want to consider, because, going all in with whatever gang you are, if you're red, blue, or whatever, we all need to have some independent thought, and we need to have the facts, and we need to have not just the promises and the ideology and the bombast and the rhetoric and things like that. We need results. This is no longer a game where we can continue to go for the status quo and allow people to kind of, hijack words and kind of fear monger people into one box or the other. We have a lot on the line, and every time we look up, this world gets harder and harder to deal with. And we have children, we have grandchildren, we are attempting to make a better world. And you can't do that if we have people who are not pushing this ball forward for their own reason, one way or the other. So we want to continue to, put information out there so people can make up their minds and make up their decisions based on facts and based on what's actually going on and what they see, and being able to line that up with your own thoughts and your own value system and come up with something so that we can actually do something to affect this community and affect our future. Because if we don't, and we continue to allow other people to shape it, then we're going to get the exact country we deserve, and it won't be one for us.
And as we, kind of stated in our previous videos earlier within the year, we're going to continue to push for these things. And I know next year we're looking at midterm elections, and that's going to be a bigger year for us, where we're going to be doing a lot of overviews again on candidates and things of that nature, to make sure we keep an eye on different positions of political nature, on how we can continue the ball rolling, and, as you said, affect, the judicial system in whatever manner we can from this angle currently. And, the best way is, as you said, keep an eye on your local elections and things of that nature, and putting in the people that, share your same type of ideology as far as the sense of equality. And the one thing, I'm going to kind of say against, we kind of breezed over it a little bit last week in following the Cal Rittenhouse. I would urge people to go, Google Andrew Coffey IV, who was a Black teen who actually was acquitted on the same day as Cal Rittenhouse. And, as far as us seeing justice and changes within the system, I think these things are starting to occur, and all we can do, as you said, are to continue to push for equality in the way that we have, in the correct manner.
Yeah, I mean, all we want, when it comes down to equality, like, again, that's one of those ones that is, I think that there's definitely a base to it that we can all kind of agree on, and having an equal opportunity and equal measure of both justice and how we're treated, and the way laws are applied, in the defense of those laws, in how policies are written, and our opportunity to participate in this system, and our ability to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, all that stuff that sounded real good when they wrote it down. but some people doesn't feel it applies to all of us.
And I mean, one thing I do want to highlight, because even when we kind of spoke last week, even as an organization, me and both Mark have two total different ideologies. You know, to be honest, yeah, we agree on a lot of things that we can do as far as our community push forward, but we kind of come together on finding actual solutions. And if two people can come together and do that, that's what we are trying to show, that there are true solutions and it's not just one ideology. You can basically make an independent, I think me and Mark are both independent version overall, but I think we kind of, you know, we feel differently on different ways we'll go about things, but that doesn't stop the progress that we see that can be made within minority communities from the actual solutions that we can actually put into play currently.
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, where my thoughts lie politically and where your thoughts lie politically comes, they're the third layer. Because the first layer is that, we're men of color. And the second layer is that we're fathers. And we number one we want to continue to push things forward for people who have not had that voice, for people who have been marginalized for so long. And again, we want to build a better world for people who are coming behind us, who did not ask to be here and who did not ask for any of these things. And children are not born racist, and children are not born predatory towards one another. And we want to create a world where that's not something they need to become to survive in it. And we are those things first. And so yeah, we bring that independent thought, and we bring our own stuff, and we don't always agree, but we definitely agree in pushing the minority community forward and making sure that information is out there for everybody. So that little bit of background, I do believe, is super important for people, because this isn't just something where a couple of guys like, all right, this is kind of like our, kind of our thing, everybody is kind of rubbing their hands together. Like, no, this is, two people just going, all right, enough of this. What can we do? And we will bring that energy to people. We'll bring that, that information to people and talk about it and put it out there. And whoever is available to listen to it, please. And if you know somebody who's talked about these things, let them listen to it. Bring some ideas, bring some, comments our way, and bring some issues to the table and things like that, because we're all searching for answers, and there's far too many people aligned to make sure we don't get those answers, as opposed to those who are actually looking for them. And we will always be out there fighting for that stuff. So that's a very good point to make there.
Yes, sir. And again, I thank everybody for listening, whether you listen on Audius, on the YouTube, or you're just a Facebook group member. Definitely check out a lot of the things we have going on, even as far as to a few of our old Minority Monday videos, that a lot of the assets we still recommend. And these are things going into the digital future that a lot of people would want to add within their portfolio and be holding on to these things, so that we can build not only equality, but also equity within our own country and even globally within our own world.